Hello. Hi, Lisa. My best friend. Hello. I hope everyone is doing really well. I was just looking at your comments. I always miss the comments every time I do a live because I'm always so fixated on the guest and what we're talking about. So hopefully soon I'll get to do a live just with you guys. I hope everyone's doing well today. The weather here is beautiful, but there is a little bit of fog, and it's kind of like you could see the trees, and then you can see like this haze above, so it's really beautiful. I am probably gonna go for a walk later because it's a perfect day for that. So I hope everybody's doing really well. Thank you. I'm doing well today, doing really well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I just bought this recently and I'm like, I love this color. It's so what's the word? Happy. It's a happy color. I do offer one-on-one sessions. You can book it through the link in my bio. They're called soul sessions. So if you would like to book one, that would be wonderful. So today I'm going to be going live with Poppy Jamie, who I went live with last week, I believe, and it was such an amazing session. The feedback was incredible. We talked about welcome home back then, and so I wanted to talk to her about her book, Happy Not Perfect. And I think it is such a beautiful way to just change the way that you think of what happiness looks like. It's exactly what, the message I'm trying to send through Welcome Home, through all the work that I do. You don't have to be perfect. You don't always have to make the right decision, as in, you don't always have to have that decision guaranteed to be the right thing. Sometimes you have to take risks not knowing if it's going to be right or wrong. So we're going to have that conversation. I'm going to invite her on right now. Oh, Instagram won't let you join. Let's see. Here you. So let's give that 2 seconds. I'm not Moroccan. I'm Lebanese. I live in Canada. So my whole family, and I tell this story in Welcome Home, but my whole family um, so Poppy, I just invited you. I don't know if you got the request. There you are.
Hi!
How are you?
I'm so well, and I'm so happy to be here with you. And you look gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm loving your eyes.
Oh, thank you. I honestly, I've just been recently, I'm like, why do I wear so much on them? Like my eyes tell their own story. Why do I have to? I usually wear quite a bit of eyeliner because I don't know. And then I'm just like, Najwa, just go chill down, like chill out, whatever it is. Chillax. Yeah, whatever the kids say these days.
Well,
Yeah,
you look gorgeous and sparkly,
thank you.
and I'm so glad Instagram allowed me finally to join your live, as I was getting
Yeah.
I was having to use my own tools on me to like calm me down while I was trying to access.
Aw, well, we're here, so I'm happy. Well, nothing is perfect, right? Nothing is perfect. Perfect conversation. And this is what I wanted to start talking to you about is I honestly, like when I reflect back on my whole life, I always attached happiness with perfection without being aware that I was attaching happiness to perfection. So it was always, I'll be happy when I get that degree. I'll be happy when, I look a certain way. I'll be happy when I'm able to afford this. I'll be happy. Like there was always that. And then when I look at all of those things that I based happiness or potential happiness on, they were perfection. And like, I feel like so many of us do that. It's like we can't be happy without it all being a certain way. And that is about being a perfectionist, right?
Absolutely. I think it was around 2015. So, gosh, looking at 6 years ago now. And at 3 a.m., I woke up with these three words: happy, not perfect, happy, not perfect. And
Mhm.
it became this mantra. And it also was the almost the kind of the antidote to how I was living my life. And I, just like you, I had didn't even realize that I had attached perfection and happiness to the same goal. But since
Mhm.
I was, 12, 13, I would, when I felt unhappy, I would immediately jump to the conclusion that, well, if I was better, or if I was cleverer, or if I looked prettier, or if I was
Mhm.
in the sports teams, or if I was, then I would be happy. Then that would be the solution to my happiness. But it wasn't. It was, and I love the quote, happiness is not the absence of problems, it's the ability to deal with them. And I
Yes.
thought happiness was the opposite. Happiness was when I reached a problem-free existence. And
Mhm.
I burn out on the journey, because when we're constantly trying to create a life that has no struggle, we're exhausted, because we're trying to create a perfect life which doesn't exist when we're human.
Yes.
So, it's the imperfection that gives us this kind of these unique moments of happiness.
Mhm. And to think about it as more of a practical thing, because I know it's like it's beautiful to talk about, but when it actually comes down to practice, what did you find, you know, caught you in those moments where you felt like you were aiming for perfection and it helped you to snap back into reality and remind yourself that I'm not perfect and this is not going to be perfect. Like, what was it that kind of caused that shift to happen in action for you?
That's a really great question. And I think, in a way, the whole book is the answer to it, because it's
Yes.
not easy. Like, what I would say is, all of the work that we're doing and everybody watching, nothing happens overnight. We can't, it's very rare that we wake up one day and suddenly we have total self-acceptance. I guess the answer to to your question, the heart of it was to be able to be slow enough in my mind to be able to catch when I am craving perfection in the
Mhm.
form, and I'm wrapping it up as happiness. But actually, if I unwrap it, it's actually quite toxic perfectionism. And I
Yeah.
think that this also can lead into like toxic positivity. I think sometimes we're so desperate to feel good and feel happy that we can totally ignore ourselves and disconnect from our real truth by just acknowledging how we're feeling, and actually acknowledging that things sometimes aren't great. Sometimes things are a challenge, and sometimes there is also like no kind of there feels like no rhyme and reason to why we're in situations that we're in. And when we're in that moment of acceptance, and I think a really powerful word of surrender, of allowing things to be, even if we don't like them so much, that I think was two of the things that really helped me return to a sense of equilibrium. And I would say, for everyone watching and listening, taking the time to redefine happiness and what that means to you is a really
Mhm.
powerful start. Because when you define happiness as perfection, you then are constantly unhappy, because you're constantly striving for more. I went through a process of really asking myself, well, what does happiness mean? And I began to realize that for me, it was flexibility. And so when you redefine it, suddenly I'm in a much happier state much more often, because actually happiness isn't some huge mountain I have to climb every single day, and I have
Mhm.
to, do X, Y, and Z to get there. Actually, I realized, oh, I can totally redefine this and actually be happier far more often. Um, so yeah, it was landing on this idea of flexibility was my route to
Yes.
unpacking.
That's what I thought your answer would be. Because reading through Happy Not Perfect, that word came up over and over, and the flex method and everything just got me thinking, like, yes, the reason that we have a hard time even defining happiness for ourselves is we believe that happiness looks like something that maybe someone else looks like they have, and we're like, well, if they have it and they're happy, then if I have it, I will be happy. It's like we don't even know what makes us happy. So it's much easier to look at someone else's life, or not necessarily look at someone else's life. I think the thing is that we are looking outside of our own life and looking
Yeah.
to define happiness through someone else's eyes. We don't
Yes.
even know what makes us happy. You know, for the longest time, I thought what would make me happy is being loved by someone,
Mm.
being
Mm.
welcomed by someone, being told by someone, that's great. What you're doing is great. I'm proud of you. But that's not happiness that is stemming from me. That's happiness that's stemming from me not wanting to face the truth of who I am, to the point where I could actually ask myself, what makes me happy? What
Mm.
brings me joy? That's so much harder to do than it is to depend on someone else to tell you, here's the road to happiness. Follow this and you will get to that place. That's a lot easier, because at the end, you could totally look at that person and say, it's your fault I'm not happy. But do we ever look at ourselves and say, well, maybe I'm not happy because I don't even know what happiness looks like for me, you know? We rarely do that. It's easier to blame others. So I'm happy that you brought up, you know, the flexibility aspect, and that you not brought up, but that you went and delved into it as deeply as you did, because that is a struggle going against that, the rigidity that we have, that, you know, it's kind of like our limiting beliefs, right? It's you just can't see them changing. You just they're like pillars that are so real and so true for you. And if you just, you know, if you just allowed yourself to change the way that you're thinking, or maybe look at things from a different perspective, then that's all you that's the first step that you need to take, is just say, what if things are different? Like, what if I try this new thing, I actually don't like die or something, because that's the fear that we have. We're like, I can't do that. I can't think that way because my life would be over, you know? It's like this big monster. Like you said, it's like this big mountain that we have to climb every single day, and it's not that, right?
Absolutely. I feel that, happiness is directly proportionate to our ability to move through our fears.
Yes.
And because fears keep us so blocked, and our brain tells us so many lies, and that's
Hmm.
why when I really thought to myself, what does flexibility mean, and how on earth do we stretch our mind? Because just like our body, when we're stiff physically, we get aches and pains, and we become like less inclined and less willing to even move our bodies because it becomes harder. And our mind is just the same. Our mind needs constant stretching. And it's so easy to sit there with friends who believe exactly what you believe, or we sit there with people who confirm our realities. But actually, I challenge you, everyone listening, and the thing that I challenge myself is to go and find people who think differently from you, because
Hmm.
suddenly you're able to maybe A, learn new things, but B, be more aware of your blind spots. And it's something I talk about in the book. When we're driving a car, we always have to kind of look twice to spot the blind spot and then make sure that a car isn't coming. And it's the same with our life. We all have blind spots. The way we see a situation could be so driven by our limiting beliefs. And research theory found that the brain is being bombarded with 11 million pieces of information a second, and our conscious brain can only process 50. So we
Hmm.
have millions of pieces of information that we fully can't even take into account because we're so focused on our very direct the perspective of what we want to see from our reality. And as you said, often our fears very much can drive that perspective. And so flexibility is realizing that we can always take a different outlook or perspective on a situation. We can always challenge the fear that feels so real. And as they say, fear, false evidence appearing real. Like I know as well as you, like when you have a feeling that, you know, your brain is telling you, I'm going to be unsafe if I do this, or oh God, I'm going to be terrible at that, or I mustn't go to this,
Yes.
everybody hates me, when our inner critic suddenly starts to be fueled with, and it's amazing, our inner critic knows our worst fears. It knows, it remembers the meanest things we've heard about ourselves. It remembers the moments of our greatest kind of scary moments in life, and it reminds us of them daily. And when we're able to learn that that voice is made up of usually very faulty information, and when I was researching the book and realized that it's practically impossible for us to remember the past accurately. And this is why FBI agents, for example, will ask people to repeat a situation they're trying to find more information about twice to see if someone's lying. And if somebody can repeat a moment in the past identically twice, it suggests that they're probably lying, because
Yes.
what the normal brain does is we remember something, and then our
Mhm.
subconscious kind of fills in the blanks with lots of different kind of maybe other experiences we've had, or other things maybe we've watched on television, or what people have told us. So we remember our past, but then we add things onto it. And so it means
Mhm.
that we can't fully trust the past to direct the decisions we're making in the present to create our future. The only truth, the real truth we have, is in this present moment, and how does my body feel? And so with flexibility, one of the most important things in stretching our mind is to slow down. Because when we're busy, we make decisions in such a stiff, reactive way, all being driven by past memories, because our subconscious now wants to react so quickly to get us out of inverted commas danger. But we
Yeah.
actually don't realize if it's danger. We're like, you know, in prehistoric times, you know, we would see a stick and immediately go, oh my God, it's a snake, run. But we're now in this moment in time, in this incredible, beautiful moment where humanity is taking the time, and like with, you know, books like yours and your Instagram account is like the most perfect example of tools that we have available to us all day, every day, to stop, think, and upgrade our mind to be out of reactionary mode, out of that caveman. It's a snake. No, that's a stick. There's nothing to be afraid of. And
Yes.
when we pause, we're able to shrink that fear and step into love, step into compassion, and step into living life aligned with our values.
Hmm. That makes so much sense. And as you were talking, I was thinking of like how we remember our past. I feel like so many people, when they think back to their childhood, they recall, you know, their recollection of certain negative events sometimes seems to be exaggerated for those who were involved. And it's just like, well, that's how I remember it. And I remember it that way because it had that kind of impact on me. And I'm not trying to say that there weren't good times around that time, or maybe it wasn't that intense, but I remember it being that bad. And it's so amazing how literally just validating that it could have been as bad as you experienced it as a child could really help you move past it and not define yourself by it. But as you were talking about how we recall past memories, I feel like we do tend to just, however we experience them in that moment, that's it. They've registered as that. And even though on a logical level now, as adults, we are able to see them differently, or if somebody were to come to us with the same experience, we would see it in a different way. But it's like on an internal, like physiological level, it's still registered as that truth that registered in the moment. So let's say, how do you use flexible thinking or flexible reframing for past experiences as opposed to the now and snapping back into the now? Is that a good question?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the flex is made up of 4 steps. So
Yes.
first one is exactly what you're saying, connect to it,
Hmm.
accept it, don't push it away. Because when we have had experiences in the past that have been really uncomfortable and caused us so much pain, we want to almost disconnect from it. We want to kind of ignore it. We want to numb it. We want to distract ourselves. So when we're feeling triggered, usually it's like, I'm going to go on Instagram. I'm going to go internet shopping. I'm going to watch
Yes.
Netflix. I'm going to just do something to stop me feeling, because it's so painful. But
Hmm.
when we are able to pause, and as my teacher always says to me, pause, what a pleasure. Pause, what a pleasure. Because when we're able to pause, we actually realize that these huge monster fears are really an illusion, and we're able to see that pain for what it was and accept it. And so I use the diffusion technique, which is from acceptance commitment therapy. And it's just
Hmm.
the simple sentence: today, my mind feels this. Today, my mind feels. And we remind ourselves that right in this moment, today, our feelings will always pass. My
Yes.
mind, like, we are not our feelings. Like, our mind, our emotional brain is not us, really, because we can observe it. So
Yes.
like, our true soul is peaceful. Our true soul, underneath all our conditioning, all our experiences, most of which we've not chosen to experience, but underneath all, our soul is just pure love. And so by slightly detaching ourselves from it, it's really helpful for us to get curious. and
Yes.
um, and so I think the acceptance and surrendering. Now, what I would say when we're experiencing, or managing any emotion, past, to your question, and also present, is also to be aware at what state you are facing these past or present uncomfortable experiences. Because when you're tired, when you have not eaten, when you have not seen any friends, like, your energy system is so low, and in which case I feel emotions can feel very overwhelming. So what I
Hmm.
do write about in my book is to always be aware of what energy you're bringing to facing your fears and facing maybe like past experiences. And so it's really important to make sure that your basic well-being is being nurtured, to have the energy to even stretch your thoughts. Because when we are like low energy, like, it makes everything far more, like, I think, intense than it needs to be often.
Yes.
So first of all, is connect with the right energy. And so a few ways that you can upgrade your energy to be able to, face these experiences, face these feelings that you're having, is to, I think, upgrade your physical energy. So I really encourage people to go for a walk, to even like do 5 jumping jacks. Like this, like your physical energy is key to looking after this. Like, these things are not like, disconnected. For years, we just focused on the physical body and totally forgot the mind. Now we're focusing on the mind, but we also can't, miss out the physical body. So, for example, what I like to do is, even just if I can't go for a walk, or if I can't move my body, if I'm kind of at my desk and having a triggered moment, let's say, a micro flex could be as easy as relaxing your shoulders down, inhaling into
Yes.
the belly, and exhaling, moving the belly it to the spine on the exhale. Now let's inhale again together through your nose this time, if you can. So inhale through the nose even more. Expand even more if you can. Expanding that belly to the fullest possible point. And now exhale slowly through the mouth.
That
Slowly,
literally
slowly,
distracts
slowly.
you from everything. You simply can't do that without taking that energy back into you, focusing on you and removing the focus on that external fear or whatever it is. Like, that's, yes. Thank you for that.
It is.
Okay.
It's you're in your parasympathetic nervous system. That power of pause and connecting, and as someone also made a point, breathing through your nose, because when you breathe through your nose, you stimulate nitric oxide, which has
Mhm.
like a more of a relaxing effect on your mind, and also
Yes.
helps you to breathe slower. So yes, Mark, who's commenting, you're totally correct in saying that. And it's amazing, like, however we're feeling, when we deregulate the nervous system, we have so much more clarity when it comes to what we're trying to process.
Yes. Absolutely. I used box breathing for a while and it helped me so much. As soon as I would sense anything like was really stressful and I needed to get back like in tune with my body, I would just do like 3 minutes of it. And it was like you hit a refresh button on your body. So that's so important.
It activates a whole different part of your brain. So,
Yes.
and it gets us out of like stiff thinking. When we're stuck in stiff thinking, it's like reacting the whole time. We're in our sympathetic nervous state, the fight and flight. You can't make good decisions when you're in the fight and flight. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the computer side of your brain, it is offline. So the emotional side of our brain is the only thing active. And that's why we can feel like overwhelmed, over emotional, because we've totally disconnected from the wise part of our brain. Like within
Yes.
all of us, we're pools of wisdom. Like everybody is their own guru. We've got endless wisdom. We know ourselves the best, and we always truly deep down know the answer. It's just slowing down long enough to be able to catch the big fish in the meditation world, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, we always know that when you're reacting quickly in the moment, it might feel good, but then an hour later you think to yourself, I wish I waited, right? Like you send that text and then the next day you're like, oh, I wish I waited. I made it till now. So clearly that wasn't an immediately urgent thing. So it's like you only become aware of it afterwards. And I honestly recently started doing this. I used to think that my emotions controlled me. Like if I really needed to get something off my chest, I really needed to get it off my chest. That's how I felt before, and that's how I operated. I would feel like there's no way for me to feel relieved unless I say what it is that I have to say, or, and it wasn't in the moment you rationalize it in any way possible. You're just like, I'm standing up for myself, I'm showing, whatever it is. And then
Mm-hmm.
later I would think, you know what? Like mature, logical me would not have done that. So lately, what I've been doing is it, it's hard. It's not easy. I hope whoever is listening knows. And you're not saying that it's easy either, but it's not easy to catch yourself and say, I recognize that doing this or saying this will make me feel immediate relief. And I recognize that if I don't say it or do it, I'm going to feel awful for a little bit, but I'm going to choose what I know, from all the evidence around me, that it's better for me to give myself time, pause, breathe, put my phone away, close my office door, whatever it is, and just give myself time. Think about it, feel it, understand whether the decision that you were about to make, whether it's to say something or do something or whatever it is, or move in a certain direction, is it stemming from fear, or is it stemming from, am I thinking of a short-term consequence or a short-term, reward, or am I thinking what's best long-term? What is something that, nourishes me authentically, and the happiness that I believe I want to achieve for myself? Then once you do that, and like I said, I have been doing that recently, it's like you go through it has built-in acceptance. Like that process itself, it's like you yourself are letting go of the hope that this decision that you can make in this moment is going to change that reality that you are reacting to. You let go of that hope. You feel a little bit of sadness, you feel a little bit of disappointment, and as you're doing that, like waiting and pausing, oh my, I actually have to accept this. Like that part of me that's like, no, I don't want this to be like this, and I'm gonna say something to try to change, or I'm gonna do something to try to change it. You've calmed that part down, and all of a sudden, acceptance starts seeping in. And like I said, it comes with a disappointment, it comes with sadness, it comes with maybe some regret about things you've done before to lead you up to this point. But whatever it is, it's like I said, there's built-in acceptance, and then a few hours later, or a day later, or a month later, or whatever it is, you look back to that moment and think, I'm actually so grateful that I took control of that moment, but not took control of it, but more like stopped my emotions and thoughts from taking control of me, right?
Yeah. It's like, be the cause, not the effect. When we're reacting and, saying things that make us feel good, it's kind of, it's like instant gratification. It's that kind of instant hit, that instant validation that we want. Like, and it does it. I have sent the worst emails as I've gone like, let me tell you, like,
Yeah.
but, and it is, it's like, it felt so good because all I'm doing is like giving my ego food. And I
Yes.
love in the Buddhist philosophy, they say your brain has only, two wolves, the love of wolf and the love of fear. No, the wolf of love and the wolf of fear. And
Yes.
only one wolf can eat. So when we like fire back to those emails or say something that that makes us feel good in that moment, we are feeding the wolf of fear. It's like,
Yes.
no, don't make me feel small. I'm going to say this, or that's made me feel really unloved. I'm going to say this, or how dare you treat me like this? That's going to say this. When we pause and think, what would be my best next step to nurture that wolf of love? And that's why
Mhm.
the flex method is about, it takes you through step 1, connection, step 2, curiosity, step 3, choice. You can choose how you react. And in that space between stimulus and response, as the wonderful Viktor Frankl, that wonderful author, wrote, is where our freedom lies. Because when
Yes.
we do bite back, we give away our power. And that's what I think is, for me, that's been the greatest journey, because I'm very emotional and I'm really impulsive. And, like growing up, I was, like I had zero control. And, and everybody would say, Poppy, you wear your heart on your sleeve. And don't get me wrong, that's a really nice quality when you're emotional and you're open hearted.
Yes.
But also it can have consequences which can be hurtful for other people, and also not really get me the result I want, which is
Yes.
our growth, our soul growth. And so when step 3 came to me, that choice, I always have a choice on how I respond. And step 4, commitment to who I want to be, commitment, what I
Yes.
want my future to be like. Because
Mhm.
when we don't take that pause, and we don't take that flex moment to pivot, we are stuck, like living out Einstein's definition of reality, doing the same thing, expecting a different result, like responding, reacting in the same way that our past has informed us to.
And then
But
getting upset that we're not getting the result that we want when we've literally tried it before and we know the path. And you wrote about this, it's the familiarity of it, right?
and it feels good. The
Yes.
familiarity makes us feel safe because the brain is wired like that. Predict and protect. It's the only thing our brain wants us to do. So again, there's that moment when we go back to date the same people that we know will make us unhappy, but we just go back there because it feels familiar. It feels
Yes.
nice for that moment in time. But then we do, our soul, we do feel disappointed because we're like, I know things can be better than this. And that is terrifying when we're walking down paths we haven't walked before. And for those first 2 steps, your ego is going to tell you everything to make you turn back. It's going to make up stories and lies and anything it possibly can to make you go back
Yes.
to the familiar. And that's when we need our community. That's when we need like your books and your work and our friends to go, no, you're doing the right thing. You're walking a path you haven't before, and it feels uncomfortable, but growth
Yes.
sometimes does feel a bit painful. Growing pains, as they call them when we're growing up. And I think that's a life challenge for all of us, to recognize when pain is actually a sign that no, this isn't right for us, or when that slightly uncomfortable feeling, when actually we are growing into something new, something better, and something more aligned to who we've always been.
Yes, absolutely. Two things come to mind. To get somewhere you've never been, you have to do something you've never done. And like, I
Mm,
remember when I heard those words, I was like, yes, I know this. But when I heard them that way, I was like, yes. And it's the same thing with saying, you know, don't take advice from people who are living a life that you wouldn't want to live. And
Yes,
when I reflected
yes.
on that, I was like, oh my God, I've been sharing my issues with people who don't live a life I want to live. So why do I trust their judgment more than I trust mine? And
Yes.
going back to something you mentioned at the beginning of the slide when you said, talk to people who don't have the same beliefs that you do. Like, talk to people who
Mm,
might challenge you to think in a different way. Because speaking from personal experience, you know, I grew up in a very sheltered environment where there were very clear lines between right and wrong. And I remember when
mm,
I first started sitting in circles of people who had different beliefs than the ones that I had, my brain immediately said, don't register any of this. Like, don't even listen to it. It's not important. You're going to be fighting a battle that you're not going to win. And then when I started listening and giving myself permission to actually, you know, again, be flexible with
mm,
my thinking, be flexible with my view of life, be
mm,
flexible with my view of what's right and what's wrong, and not be so stuck on this is the right way, this is the wrong way. It transformed my life. That's when I knew I have a choice. Like, I wouldn't have gotten to step 3 of choosing how to react
mm,
had I not, like, fully understood, first of all, understood, connected with, okay, where did those beliefs form from? Why do I
mm,
have those beliefs? And then became curious, like, okay, like, do I actually believe this? So where did this come from? And why did I actually internalize it and live by it for so long? So, like, to take it to a more like grand scheme of things, the method works for that too. Like, to get you out of that, the maybe, I don't want to say the rut, but because I don't want to insult anyone. Like, some people have their beliefs and they're stuck to them,
mm,
but be open to the fact that you don't always think the right way, whatever that is. Like, maybe that doesn't even exist. Like, be open to the fact that someone out there might know something that you don't know. Like, in that alone,
mm,
there's so much humility and there's so much opportunity to change and to see something that you've never seen before, or open yourself up to potentially at some point getting to a place that you never thought you could be at. It's not like I said, you listen to motivational speeches, you listen to people speaking, you read a book, but at the end of the day, you have to apply those things into your life
mm,
for you to see that difference, right?
mm,
Last time when you and I were
mm,
talking about welcome home, you know, one thing that I think we talked about this, but how do you put into action everything that you believe? So, to anyone listening to this, follow the steps that you just gave us, the connection, the curiosity, the choice. Like, follow that in your daily life. Don't just say, oh, I know this. I've heard this. It was inspirational. Like, genuinely try to apply it in your life. And it is hard. It's not easy. I face those difficulties every single day, and I keep reminding myself change is painful. Like today when I was doing a workout, and I recognized as I was doing this workout at home that it was painful as I was doing the workout, but I was enjoying it
yeah.
because I knew this pain means that I'm gonna see the results afterwards. And I loved that I was enjoying the pain, not to be like, oh, enjoy the pain of anything, but enjoy the pain of change. Try to enjoy the
Mm,
pain because
mm,
it, you know, like, pain is an indication. Pain doesn't always have to be negative. Sometimes pain is literally just because you're so used to going down this path that's so
mm-hmm.
familiar, and now you're going down a different one. You're like, I don't know where I have to stop, and I don't know where the light is going to be red or green, or I don't know if there's going to be a pothole somewhere. But that, okay, that pain is like, Is that more painful than going down the same path that you've always gone, that literally always took you to the same place that you're not even happy with? So it's like staying on the same path that's familiar is painful, and going
Mm.
on the path to change is painful. Choose the pain that you want, right?
Yeah, totally.
So,
And it goes back to, not to be afraid of struggle. And it goes back to our
yes,
first point where we, this understanding that happiness is this experience with no struggle. But actually struggle is brilliant. I'm sure everybody watching, like, me included, we all are having struggles in different
yes,
shapes and forms. And it's what makes us like make a new decision, maybe move jobs, maybe like, do something different in a relationship, like, or, even just change up our routine. Like it's the struggle that makes us question, huh, you know, could I do this better? Or like, what could change here for this struggle to be relieved? And then, and if someone just said, pain is an excellent teacher. And I think sometimes we become so terrified of uncomfortable feelings. And what you were just saying, it's so beautiful. Like uncomfortable feelings can often be our guide.
yes. And if we just have to, again, like, if you think it long enough, it starts becoming your normal. So another reflection I had yesterday that I was like, I'm going to talk to you about this today is, the way that you recall certain things from the past and how you recall them as they are.
Mm.
They come to you subconsciously. It's like listening to a song on repeat. And all of a sudden, you just sing it without even thinking of the words. Like it just slides off your tongue. It's the same thing with the things we tell ourselves, with the way we speak to ourselves, with the stop, don't go there. We don't know what this is. That's gonna cause you a lot of pain. That's gonna prove what that person said about you. It's the same thing. It's like a cassette that keeps playing over and over and over. And because we've allowed it to play for so long, it's like we don't even think where it's coming from anymore. We're not aware of it anymore. And so for me, it's what you do is the first step, which is what you also mentioned, is like catch that, listen to it, catch it, and then connect with it, become curious, all of that. But the first step is to just look at things as they are, and don't be in denial that maybe the way that you thought about things and felt about things and lived your life, don't be in denial that it could be in need of change, that it is possible for it to change. And also don't be in denial of the fact that you have control over changing it. Like don't sit there and feel stuck and say, this is just how my life is, this is how it's been. Like you said, when your friends would say you wear your heart on your sleeve, oh my, I've been like that. I'm like, I can't hide the way I feel. I can't hide it. But again, it's the word. I can't. Yes, I can.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I'm choosing not to. I'm choosing not to, but I'm not even aware that
Mm.
I'm choosing because I don't even think I have a choice. But once you give
Mm.
yourself that permission, it changes the whole story, right?
So true. I think what you just said there was like, and summed it up, was just so brilliant. And just, past suffering, it doesn't mean you didn't suffer in the past if you're not suffering now. And I think sometimes, like, if we feel like we're moving on from our trauma, we're almost dissolving it. We're like taking it away. Like,
That was so beautiful the way you said it. Just because we're not suffering now, it doesn't take away past suffering. Yes, yes, keep going. I just wanted to highlight that.
and that just, it was very much inspired by what you were just saying. And I think, to me, again, that was one of the gates I found to freedom, was
Yes,
actually, yeah, I have, had a really tumultuous, like, life in different parts. And also, I get, pain has no hierarchy, so we can't compare our trauma. And
yes,
what's so interesting is, one of my family members recently was like very, very, very upset. He's in his mid-30s, and he was really upset about his girlfriend going away. And what we realized was actually it was all stemming back from this trauma of him being terrified of when my parents left. Now,
Mhm.
your parents leaving isn't a huge trauma. You would think some people wouldn't even notice, they wouldn't even care. And what is so interesting is that some of the smallest things, and I think this is why I loved your book so much, like some of the smallest, even, a relationship that may not last for 10 years still has the capacity to cause us to cause us pain and cause us to react in the present in ways that feels almost kind of extreme. But like, so our experiences, whatever you've gone through, is totally valid in how you lived the present. But what's so interesting, where our freedom lies, is to reframe our present to create a new future.
Yeah.
So and I think that's really kind of, your book explores it in so many different ways and finding different homes. And I feel like my book comes from the perspective of these 4 steps of kind of like being flexible in being able to stretch our thinking. So it means we don't fall down the same potholes.
Yes.
Because I used to get stuck in thought ruts, and spin around in circles. And the other point I wanted to mention about the language we use, the language is so important and powerful. So there was a study done, and a scientist brought a group of participants in a room and showed them a car crash, and
Yes.
then she brought the participants back a few weeks later and asked them some questions on what she showed them. Now, she asked 2 different questions to 2 different groups. So she asked the first group, did you see any broken glass on the floor when these cars smashed into each other? And she asked the second group, did you see any broken glass on the floor when the cars hit each other? Now, the group that heard the word hit said, no, we didn't see any glass on the floor. And the group that heard the word smash all said, yes, there was definitely glass on the floor. In fact, there was no smashed glass on the floor in this video they watched. But the word smashed, and using the word smashed, immediately evoked their brain to go,
Yes.
there must have been broken glass. So it's really important the way that the language we use to talk about ourselves, the language we use to talk about the past, that is so critical in the way that our brain processes. So what
Yes.
someone said to me, Poppy, your past is your winning formula. Every trauma, every uncomfortable experience, every pain that you went through and survived to get to this point right now is your winning formula. Nobody else has that winning formula. And I thought that was such a beautiful way to
Yeah.
reflect on some of the hard times that we've all gone through, because it's the compression that makes diamonds. It's that kind of, that heat and that pressure for thousands of years, and suddenly that sparkly diamond is created from it. And
Mhm.
and I think, yeah, to your point, language is so powerful.
Yes, I agree with you so much. And same theme in Welcome Home. Why can't I have that story? Change the narrative. Why don't I have that? Like, it's so important to have the language inherently, you know, uh, be directly related to possibility and change and power that's yours. Like, don't limit yourself, and don't use words that over exaggerate something, or that just, make you see it. It's so important whether you put yourself as an active role in a sentence versus something was done to me, or I
Mm.
was part of something, you know? And for anybody, I was just looking again through your book, but for anybody who's listening, like, all of the stuff that we talked about, it's laid out in such a beautiful format in your book. It's like, if there was one thing that you're interested in, you're like, oh, here it is, curiosity, page 119. I could go to that. So one thing that I wanted to ask you is, and I know that my audience is very interested in this, how do you flex in love, in relationships? How do you, because that's, my audience, yes, relates to pain, relates to feelings and emotions, but love is just one of those themes that will never go away. Love, relationships, getting attached to someone, getting your heart broken, seeing a person for who they really are. So how would you use the flex method in that scenario?
So the flex method is, in a way, I think one of the inspirations came from having an awful breakup. I do think breakups are wonderful. I know they don't
They
feel
really are.
yeah, they don't feel wonderful at the time, but my best work has always come after a breakup.
Same here. Yep.
Because you're so raw and your habits have been broken. So you're in this moment of kind of rebuilding, and you get the opportunity to rebuild in the way that you want to rebuild and create habits that are healthy for you. And you're forced to recognize the value of yourself, because that's the only way to move on from a heartbreak,
Yes.
is to double down on self-appreciation. And so the flex was very much inspired by that. So it was a very good question. But I use the flex consistently in relationships, because relationships are mirrors, and they can show us our deepest insecurities, and they can be so triggering and obviously wonderful and incredible and soul fulfilling. But the flex is really good to help us remember what's true and realign with our soul than get too carried away with our fear. So
Yes.
for example, an example of a relationship, like I'll have like a terrifying fear that I'm about to be broken up with, oh, they're going to reject me, they're going to reject me, they're going to reject me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go through the flex like this. First of all, connect with how I feel.
Take
Today,
notes, you guys. Take notes.
today, my mind feels really insecure and anxious. Today, my mind feels really insecure and anxious. And today, I remind myself that these anxious, insecure feelings are temporary. I am not them. And then I will upgrade my energy, go for a walk, do 10 jumping jacks, go and work out, go for a run, belly breathe, whatever I can to upgrade my energy. So I'm changing out of that kind of like, everything's terrible, I'm insecure, I'm about to be broken up with. I
Yes.
move into, with energy, I can then get curious. Okay, is this true? Is this true? I am about to be broken up with. Yes. But can I be 100% sure it's true? No. How does this thought make me feel?
Mm-hmm.
Reactive. My worst self. Like behaving in a way that's like not, no reflection of my best confident self. I'm like defensive.
You're in survival mode.
I'm in survival mode. I'm being
Yes.
defensive. I'm, being like argumentative because I'm feeling insecure. Who would I be without this thought that I don't know is true? Well,
Yeah.
I'd be feeling relaxed. I'd be being able to get on with my work. I would be able to actually read things that are nourishing me rather than being caught up in this fearful fear. And suddenly I realized with curiosity that most of our suffering starts within our thoughts that are usually not true, but they're based and driven by our fears.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I move on to step 3. How can I choose to be kind to myself right now? So I asked myself the question, what would I advise a friend experiencing what I am now? Because often when we're stuck in our emotional brain and our wise brain is switched off, a question like, well, what would I advise a friend? We're all the best advisors in
Yes,
romance to our friends. We're the
we are.
best at giving our friends advice. But when it comes to us, we're like, oh
I'm
gosh, what?
different. Yeah. I just know so much more, and I'm understanding. It's what, right? So one of the things I always talk about is once you imagine what you would tell a friend in this situation, then ask yourself, I would tell this to my friend out of love. What would I tell myself out of love? Yeah. I just wanted
Totally.
to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you suddenly go, okay, well, I tell a friend that there's been absolutely zero signs or evidence to suggest you're going to be broken up with.
Yeah.
I would tell them that this is coming from their fear, and I would be the hype, the hype bay. I'd be like, you're amazing. You're incredible. A, you're not going to be broken up with, and B, even if that did happen, then that would be the best thing ever, because that would be right. you know, like I love the quote, and I remind myself often, what is meant for me will not pass me by.
Yes.
Like, we are all unfolding in the most perfect way. And sometimes when things happen, it doesn't feel like that, but it's always true. And so when we're not afraid of the very worst thing I'm going to be broken up with, if I'm not afraid of that, I then can be my full unexpressed self without trying to, you know, like contortion into the person I think I should be, or the person
Mhm.
I think that person wants me to be. When I
Yeah.
take away that fear of rejection, actually I'm like, ha, I'm going to say, I'm going to be, I'm going to laugh really loudly and probably snort. And I'm going to,
Yes.
you know, do all of the things that just make me happy.
Yes.
And it's so liberating. And then step 4, once I've really given myself that friend talk and really chosen to be kind and feed the wolf of love, I commit to, well, how would my best self respond? What would my best self do?
Mhm.
How can I commit to the values I want to be, the values I treasure? Open, curious, love, compassionate, optimistic. What can I do today to commit to my best self, my wildest self? And I use the word wild a lot in the book because, you know, for so long we have been, you know, quite conditioned, we've been tamed. And I love this, like, our wild souls, our true souls is the most wonderful soul that we can align with. So that's the
Yes.
really the last step. And so in love, it's as much as you can learning to quiet that fear and stepping in
Mhm.
and choosing love for yourself, mostly even in a relationship.
Yes. Choosing yourself is so much more important than someone choosing you. It's so much more important than someone choosing you. And I just, from what I see, from what I've witnessed from my past, is we would rather stay with someone who constantly makes us work to be deemed worthy in their eyes of being loved by them while we are miserable all the time, then have that person walk away. Because why? Because they're walking away. And if they walk away, then that must mean something about our worthiness. But it's just like, but why are you putting someone else's view of you ahead or on top of your view of yourself? Like, you should be leaving. You should be the one saying, I don't want this. Like, why are you afraid of that? Is it, again, dive into that. Why are you afraid of something coming to an end? It's the most natural thing about life is death, is leaving off.
Mm,
It's
mm,
seasons changing. It's relationships ending so that you can find the ones or fall into, not even like go be in search of, but just attract and be in the presence of, you know, calmly be in the presence of, not so much like just pursue and try so hard to make something work. Be in the presence of something that genuinely feeds your soul, that genuinely
mm,
feel like I can be my wild, untamed self.
mm,
I don't need to, you know, change myself in a certain way. I don't need, like, that's not the solution to my misery. It's not
mm,
changing for the sake of someone else, changing for the sake of myself. That
mm.
is going to, you know, bring me the happiness that I, you know, that I long for, that I deserve. Um, but I wanted to talk about love because I know it's such a big thing for so many people watching and listening to us right now. And I love how, you know, you use these 4 steps and they are so applicable to every aspect of our life. If we took the time to connect, become curious, to choose, you know, and to commit like that, use that with everything in your life. It works, you know, it's such a universal way of um, not continuing to live your life in a, you know, not continuing to live your life in a way that's like life is happening to me, but more like I am living. I
Mm,
am, you know, and it's an
mm.
active, ongoing, present thing, you know? So thank you so much for writing this beautiful book. Um, for Guys, I know I've showed you this, I've watched you this. See, language is like messing up in my brain right now. I know I've showed you this, but you have to go and buy this and read through it. There are so many stories in here that you want to read and that you will be able to relate to. Like, I just love how vulnerable you were and just in some of the experiences that you shared, like your thought process. It's, you say things that everyone is afraid to admit they were thinking or they were feeling. And I think that just goes to show that at the end of the day, we're all human. And whatever it is that scares you, trust me, there are millions, if not billions, out there who are afraid of the same thing, you know? So you're not alone in this. And I just know that if you were to give yourself an opportunity to grow in your own way and change in your own way and do whatever it takes to do that, your life will be completely transformed and you will be happy while not being perfect. That's my ending note for this.
It was so elegantly and eloquently done. Honestly, I'm so mesmerized always by your use of words and your ability to translate like really the soul into language. So thank you so much for
You're
this
so
wonderful, thank you.
And so, for anybody listening and watching, I know they heard so many wonderful things that you said, but what would you leave them with?
I would leave them with the if when you don't know the answer, pause. And you know, sometimes you can do the steps quickly and you suddenly are free and you feel totally differently, and other times, you know, it's slower to hear that soul, to hear that inner voice. It takes time. And so I think the greatest power we all have is to pause and get to know ourselves. And so this summer, if that is the only thing on your agenda, which is to slow down when I'm making decisions, slow down when I want to react, and not be the effect of my life, but be the cause, then that is the only thing I can leave you with, which is the thing that I'm most thinking about and the agenda for my summer.
Yes. I'm gonna imagine a little poppy on my shoulder every time. Every time I'm like, I really need to make a decision, and then say, calm down, pause, take your time. You don't have to like, or not necessarily just make a decision, but I really need to know whether the decision I'm making right now is right or wrong, and just we don't need to focus on that. We need to trust that whatever the outcome is, we will be able to handle it, you know? So I hope that you guys do the same thing. Just imagine Poppy on your shoulder and just feel like, even if you imagine like Poppy from the Trolls, you know, with her happy attitude and just sing yourself a song, you know? Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to make this live available for anyone who missed it, and I will download it and send it to you afterwards in case you want to share it on your platform, and keep sharing the love that you have been sharing and keep changing lives. Thank you so much
Oh,
for existing.
you're wonderful. You too. So much love, and hope to see you in person in the future.
You definitely have to. This year it has to happen. Let's put
Yes,
it in the universe.
exactly. So
Okay.
much love. Thank you
Thank
for
you
watching.
everyone for watching. And yes, I'll connect with you right after this. Bye.
Bye.